I hope it's going to be very fun for all of us. Just a quick question just to know what public is in front of me. How many of you play video games or consider themselves to be players? Oh, God, a good variety of you. Nice. And who amongst you already studied game design? Okay, a few. Great. Well, before I delve too much into the fascinating subject of game design and building products, I would like to start with a short story about a character you all very know. It's Leonardo da Vinci. So, as you might know, Leonardo da Vinci is a genius. Obviously, he's known for that. A great visionary of all time, right? We can really defy this. And he had because he has worked on so many amazing work and inventions that he actually brought to life. We can think about the gliders, the tanks, and all these other inventions that really put him on the map already in his time. So he already worked with the kings from France, like Francis Ier, where he built, I think, a stairwell at the castle of Chambord. I don't know if some of you have already seen it, but it's a true masterpiece. So he was really well known. He was like one of the unicorn startup from the Silicon Valley of the 15th century. Everyone wanted to invest in him, have his inputs, and like he can work on project with people. So the Duke of Milan was interested in some of his work, and he wanted to organize a very huge ball. And he said, like, look, Leonardo, I want to organize this huge ball. I want it to be perfect for all the guests. Like, the guests should have the best experience as they get in. Should have fresh food, like really amazing thing, but food should flow continuously. I'm having a little trouble in the kitchen. Do you think is there something you can do to optimize a little bit of what's happening in the kitchen? So Leonardo came up with some brilliant ideas about how to make sure the guests will eat delicious foods and to increase efficiency and performance in the kitchen. And the first idea he came up with, not really representative of what he did, but as I talk, he built a new conveyor's belt that he put into the kitchen to make sure that the cook will also always receive the food in time, so they can continue to cook and the food will arrive and nobody was going to go in their steps and everyone can be walk around. So conveyor belt just to bring the food from the warehouse to the kitchen. The second idea, for the food to cook faster, he invented new ovens that will like go into higher heat faster and cook a lot of food at the same time and like way warmer than the usual oven from that time. And the third idea was that, well, in case there was a fire because the oven was too hot, at least he would put sprinklers on top of them so water will flow down and just calm the fire and nobody will panic and everything will be under control. So Leonardo thought about everything about increasing performance into the kitchen. And on top of that, to make it even more gorgeous, he invited 50 of his friends, all artisans, to just sculpt all the appetizers so the guests will have amazing appetizers, great appetizers sculpted by artisans. So everything was thought of: experience, efficiency, performance. Well, he was definitely a visionary of his time. He has great invention, great ideas. And this tale is called actually The Kitchen's Nightmare. So, as you might guess from the title, everything went wrong into the kitchen. So the conveyor's belt at first was too slow, and then they tried to trick it a little bit, and then it was too fast. So the food was piling up in the kitchen. And since he wasn't really studying the kitchen, he didn't thought about the level design of the kitchen, and everyone was just walking around the conveyor's belt, which was taking too much place, and it was like everyone was bumping into each other. That was not a good idea. Plus, the cook didn't know how to use the oven, so they look at it and say, okay, we'll just put food into it, and then they completely forgot about them, and the food got burned because it was not used, that it was so efficient. And then since it got burned, food got burned, well, the sprinklers all started, and it spoiled all the foods because they watered it down. Top of that, all the 50 artisans that he was invited to sculpt the appetizer were too slow, and there were 50 more people in the kitchen, so it was a complete hell and a complete mess. Guests were left the ball angry and hungry, both of them, because the food never came, and the Duke of Milan was really, really bad, and very angry at Leonardo for that story, for what happened. So it was a complete disaster. So what can we take of this story about the brilliant genius like Leonardo da Vinci, other than that sometimes some of us can fail and we can make that kind of mistakes? Well, Leonardo didn't thought about something very important that he should think about, is like understanding who were the actual users that we're going to use all those new inventions. I would understand the functionalities and how the kitchen would become more efficient and performant into the kitchen, and increasing their performance in the kitchen. There was no onboarding, no tutorial. The cook didn't feel like they were masters in the kitchen anymore with all those objects around. So if you wanted to make sure that the experience will flow and that users integrate the new inventions into their everyday life, he should have thought about all of these things and making sure that he tested it before he released it and put everyone in a very weak spot and failing all the grand ball the Duke Milan was trying to create. So that could make a parallel with all the products and all the software development that we're making in our days. We are confronted with many choices as users. If you're trying to find a new project management software, you have tons of thousands of software that you can look into. How can you make sure that you're making the right decision in adopting one instead of the other? How, as a designer, you make sure that your product and your software get across and impress users and make them understand that their needs are answered with what you're trying to build. So how can you communicate efficiently with users in a world where there's so many possibilities and choice in front of us? Well, this is where game design can help a little bit, and where it's come relevant into the story. Each game, is a whole new world that invites you to discover it and to get lost in its experience. So think about it. Each game that you played actually have new controls, new mechanics, new dynamics, new everything. And each time you don't feel like you get lost or overwhelmed. Well, maybe some few games, yes, but usually it's easy to get into it and get lost in it. Most of the people almost know the story of a game better than the actual story of our world. So this lets you know like how many time you can invest into a game. So just a little bit about me. I'm Kim. So I have co-founded a company which builds and develops tailor-made games for not in the entertainment industry, but more for formation, training, schools, museums. So every other kind of industry which we can apply good game design, mechanics, dynamics to increase engagement, motivate people, train them, learn new stuff. So game design can really help jump into a new software, learning how to improve abilities, learn new stuff. And this is what I'd like to introduce to you for games. So as we said, that each game brings a new variety of new functionality. And each time player starts using a new game, he has to understand like what he needs to do. How can he build a strategy? Does he know where he's going with the game? Does he know he can optimize? How does he make sure that his objectives are well met? Like he can get to the end of the game. Can he project and he anticipate what's going to happen? Is the story enough interesting for him? And if all of this, all the dynamics, the mechanics, the functionality makes sense to the player, this is when he wants to spend more time in it, engage with it more, be motivated by him. He feels he's becoming better each time. He has a feel of progression. So this is what the power of video games really is. It's way beyond mere badges, titles, rewards, and just to make sure I'm not talking here about gamification. I'm really talking about user experience. So what is user experience? I was just going to define a little bit of the knowledge that we have about user experience. It is not about user interface design. It's completely two different things. And user experience, the term has been coined by Don Norman, who is actually the first to be called a UX designer. He is the first UX architect from Apple. Apple, you have to give it to them. They have a whole experience well designed. And the design starts from the moment that you think about the product, you go into store, you look at the object. Are you planning to buy it? There's a whole experience with it. The way they show it to you, the way they build a hype around it. This is all part of the user experience. So it's really way beyond just interface or just dressing up a software to make it look good. It's about making sure everything works as intended, and also the user understands and sees that it works. It's about user interactions. It's about functionalities, how it should work, marketing, narrative. All of this is a really combination of a lot of disciplines built into one, just to make sure that users, everything related to their perceptions, are well met and designed accordingly. So now that this is out there, um, how do we know? How can we build the best experience for a user? First step, of course, we need to understand them, so they want to engage more with our products. So what is the motivations? What motivates most users in their all-day life? What as a human motivates us to make the actions that we make? Well, there's a few. There's in the 1970s, there was two psychologists who made the research and extended research for humans, and they came up with the theory of self-determination. So they decided there was three spheres of motivations that users, this is what motivates us to do all the actions that we do. And they classed them in mastery, relatedness, and autonomy. So what do they imply, each of them? In the games, we see all of three of those spheres of motivation, and this is why people really like to interact with the game. In the mastery part, we have everything more related to achievements. So everything that gives you a sense of progression, power, status. You're gaining gear, you're collecting something, you see that you progress, yet you're starting to become very good into the game just by controls. Like everything seems to flow more smoothly now as you go and you progress throughout the game. The mechanics, the players understand the rules and knows how to optimize them. So this is all different things that motivates people to continue engaging something. They see that they're progressing and they know they can set a goal from themselves and know they can achieve it. There's usually a term in design interaction that you always have to design in 3 levels, which is one for the beginners, or always intermediate users, and the master one. Obviously, on the beginners, you have only 10% of your users that's in there because they go into your product, but you want them to move into the intermediate part where they become like easy enough around your software and they know what they can do and they use the small short tips and they can jump around and modify it as they want. And you only have 10% of your users that's going to be the real master that really engage and knows like beyond almost yourself as a developer how to use your software. In terms of social relatedness, players like to socialize, communicate, know they're helping others. We are social animals, so we always want to bond with others. We want to create relations. That's what motivates us, and to feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. So can we create a sense of motivation? You're actually building something bigger. You're going to be part of something huge. It's like almost a secret between us. This is something interesting in terms of motivations. We want to be part of something bigger. And the last one, which is more about autonomy. In the games, we have a lot of things that put players into immersion state. So everything related to discovery, mystery, Easter eggs, little winks here and there to make sure that the player are happy, like they understand what you're trying to say. Role-playing, how to live a story and be surprised by it. Playing a character. And also creation. Everything related to personalizing a software or game or aspects of your physical appearance. I've seen a lot of software now that allow you to personalize it and arrange it as you want. That is one part that they can have a lot of fun and adopt it more easily. In game design, we talk a lot about the 4 types of players that comes from Bartle. He says that there's 4 types of players that have different motivations to play into game. You have people that are more into the acting or the interacting versus the world or the players. So this relates a lot with the different 3 spheres of motivation told by this Ryan, which is you'll see mostly on the top of the diagram, everything related more to mastery. You have the explorers that are more into the autonomy and socializers more into the relatedness. So usually this is the 4 types of players that you can find in playing video games. So achievers will like mostly to make sure that they can achieve everything that you set up into the game, make sure they complete the levels at 100%, live throughout the whole story, have special achievements, rewards, something unique that makes sense to them. Killers, they like to play more with other players but compete, so they like testing each other. Explorers, everything related to exploration, creation, like what did you hide into your games or into your software or product, anything that can make them relate and bond with the product. And socializers, of course, is being part of something bigger. They can share the experience with others. Can they share everything easily? Can they show to your friends what they're doing? This is what socializer will be looking for. Now that we've talked about all the mechanic and dynamics that can motivate each of the player, how do you actually integrate them into your product? Because this is very good when you just say that, but how do you make sure that this all comes across and the users can see the value and, one, understand how he become a master, how he can progress, see how he can have fun with your product? Well, everything is about stories. So this is how our brain works. Our brains are wired to learn through stories. Since the very beginning of the humanity, each stories have been used to live an experience, share an experience, share something that you should learn about the world. And this is how we learn. We understand like who are the people, what's going to happen in that situation, and what is the end result. We learn through stories, and this has been a lot of research done about that, and this is easier for people to understand exactly what is the context, what is the situation, and how I can get into. So this is why we want to build each of our software or product as a story, because stories brings emotions, and we learn through emotions. We understand, we can make sense with emotions. The fun thing with games is that the main character in all the stories is about the player. So it's always about him, how he makes things epic, how he lives through the games, what is he doing, he has an impact, his role, interactions. So how can we use games and all the different aspects into our product or software to make sure that users engage and learn and have fun, live something emotionally important that will bring them to go further? Well, the key components of a very good story are those four aspects. So lead, you need to understand who are the main characters easily. Who is it about? Whose stories is it about? The objective is the desire or the goal of the character is clear enough. Confrontation, obviously you can't have a story without any confrontation. If it's like just Joe goes to the groceries and he buys apple and end of story, it's not really a story. I'm saying you need to have feel and emotion. You need to hook and strive for the characters, and obviously in the end a knockout ending. Yay, like great ending. I want to know more, or I'm very satisfied with the story I have in front of me. To illustrate how we can incorporate story, I would try to show you what Duolingo did, which I thought was a really good onboarding of way of telling a story. Have you tried Duolingo just to learn? Yes, great, a lot of people. I think they did a very, very good job. Just the way you interact with it and you see it for the first time. Just look how we bring you into the story. So it's like reading a book. You have a title, okay, it's Duolingo, but what is it really about? And there's like a short little line saying like just learn a language for free forever. In terms of UX and bringing a character or player users into this world, it does a very good job, since there was like almost no other information other than the get started. The colors are vibrant, they're nice, and you already have a feel of it's cartoony, it's cute, and it looks fun. Like what it's trying to convey looks fun. So okay, I understand. The first story, to open a page, just to know, well, okay, the main character here is me. My objective is to learn a new language, but exactly how am I going to achieve that? So what is the end of the story? And the only action I'm asking you to do is just say, get started. And this is where you get started. I want to learn, and then specify your objective. Okay. So I here as a user have a choice. A lot of choice, but at the same time not that complicated, because there's obviously one language I want to learn more than the others. So clear call to action. I just choose my objective. The objective is set. So this is a story about Kim trying to learn Irish. This I thought was really interesting in Duolingo, because it asks the players actually how hard or the difficulty or levels they want to use and integrate into their goal. So what type of player are you? Are you more engaged? Are you more casual? You want something more challenging? Yes or no? This is how they introduce the concept to the players, making sure that we are tailoring the experience to your needs or to your time, or how many time you can invest into this software. So this is their set goal, deciding, okay, what type of person am I? Regular, serious, insane? So let's go with just regular, because I'm not sure as a user if I want to spend more than 20 minutes per day to learn a language. I'm just trying to see if it's worth my time. And then bang. Okay, first confrontation. So this is a story of Kim trying to learn Irish, and then she meets the first confrontation. The first test is very easy, and it's very easy to see how you can achieve and manage to get by this first conflict or this first test and first challenge. And we show it very easily. The Duolingo shows very perfectly how, in just a few steps, you can actually manage to learn the language. It's very clear how you can do that. Then when you select the right answer, it's like, oh, well, look at all the feedback. I have a sense of progression. Okay, I had did once. I have a few more questions to go. That would be the end of my story. I know I can become a master because you're telling me I'm correct. Okay, what else needs? I'm ready to take more challenge. Bring it on. So as you go through that and you complete all the progression bar, this is where we say you are the end of your episode. This is season 1, episode 1. Now, do you want to save your progression? Very easy. You create a profile right away, or no, if you don't want, you're not too sure yet, it's okay. You have the option. And then this is a story about you. And then create a profile or create a profile later, but then you fall into this. And note that it would have been easy for someone developing a software like this kind to just say the first landing page will be this one. But what we see is that this screen does not convey emotions. How do you know if you want to spend more time in it? Do you actually going to learn something about Irish or the language you're trying to see? Okay, I understand clearly there's like 3 lessons I need to do. I see them at the beginning. We're asking one more step to say start. Then we're trying with a huge lot of text, which is relevant, but when my first interaction with the software platform, is that really what I want to read? So there's no story, no emotion with that screen, whether there's maybe a tree scale so you see where we're going, but we're not building emotions. There's not a story saying that this is you, this is about you, and this is how you're going to learn Irish or German or Polish or anything you want. So the onboarding of Duolingo, I thought it was a really good example of how you can bring people into your software and building an experience around the product in just a small 5 minutes. Bring the story to life. So, okay, I'm thinking about this as a character. The user is the main character. I'm trying to put him into a story. What else can I make to make the whole experience more engaging and more fun? We as a human, as I said, we are a very social animal and we like to interact with with a lot of people, and to do so, we tend to see emotions and interpret emotion in everything, and even in objects. This I thought was really interesting because this chair, with being an object, obviously have a story to say. It's called Oops, and you can see clearly like the chair has lost something. It's just trying to like shyly take it away without anyone seeing it. So it was fun. It's fun to see that because usually, even if it's robots or anything, we tend to attribute emotions to those characters. And when Pixar or Walt Disney or anyone create an animal that doesn't talk or anything, they convey emotions through just small onomatopoeia or way of speaking or little noise they're making. You can actually feel what they're saying or trying to say. Has been a very good book about seduction in interactive design, and one thing that's really cool to bring, they talked a lot about the power of personality. So everything that relates to and creates and gives the impression that you're talking or interacting with someone is very good in a product. You remind me of, and then you can give characteristics to a brand. The best ones are Android and Apple iOS. Obviously, everyone has a camp. Like we're choosing side. This tells a lot of our personality because we can actually give characteristics to each of those branding. Apple is more user friendly. It will never let you down. It will protect you. It's very fun, very bubbly, diction, very cool. And Android is more like a wild side. Like a hacker. You can do a little more wild things. You can customize it, personalize, show your true self. You're a little bit one of a kind. Actually, so there's a lot of things about those two brandings. They clearly they clearly stand to their brandings. Like if you're choosing Android, then you're more of that type of person. Or if you're choosing Apple, you're more of another type of person. And it's very hard for people to just jump to the other, saying, "Oh, I'm so used with Apple. I like Apple. It's unhackable and it works very fun. I'm never gonna go with the Android." And it's very strong, this feeling and this personality you can give to a product. It's almost like your best friend. And in the stories or in the games, all those characters brings the stories alive. It helps you just choose a camp, have a personal opinion about someone, about a character. And this in games, a story alone without all the characters and people you can interact, there's something missing. So how can you give your product a little bit of personality? Can you say give them traits, something a little bit more mysterious about your platform as you're inviting them to say discover a little bit more about the software. When you want to learn more about how to do this, well, I'll show it to you, but just in that time. So can you give something interesting? Can you give something more fun for them to do? Can you make them more unpredictable? Can you make sure that you remember everything about your characters or your users? So these are all the things that you can think about when you're designing your products and your software. How can you make them the new best friends of your users? So a small takeaway, I think I'm talking for a few times. Okay, so how can you make them real to the takeaway? So we've talked about understanding what is the intrinsic motivations with game dynamics to boost users' engagement. So we've talked about a few dynamics that you can use and integrate into your software or product, saying that you can make a little bit something more for explorers, more for achievers. Can you give a sense of relatedness, like people when they are together, they actually feel they are in a group, they can work together into something. Can you give them a sense of progression, that you can actually set your goal and you know exactly how to achieve your goal easily. So all of the little aspects to integrate into your software, and also plus on top of that, strong storytelling for an easy onboarding. Like how can they create a story around that product that you're developing? Can you actually see themselves using it in their everyday life? Is it clear? Can they anticipate where they can use that? Or is it completely blurry for them? They can actually see where it will fit in their life, or how they can interact or live with it or use it. So if you bring a strong storytelling saying that this is the story of how you can use my software, my product, they will know more and will engage more because it will be clear for them what they can do with it. So this would all increase strong immersion for the user. And the last one, creating personality, as we say, helps a lot because you can relate more with something that has a little bit more livelihood instead of something more static. So you can give traits that's desirable, like remembering what the information they put, never asking too many times. So there's a few traits that has been aboard in the book, Seductive Interaction Design, which are really interesting because it really brings alive a whole product in the software and becomes greater than just the functionality in it. I like also to talk a lot about Mickey's 10 rules. Why? Because I think in terms of UX design, before Donald Norman coined the term, Walt Disney has been one of the first amazing UX designer. When he started to build the Walt Disney World, he actually tried to put himself into the place of kids. Like he was actually walking around his park and at the level of kids. Like, so what is their perspective? What is going to see exactly? How can I build a strong and memorable moments? I don't know how many of you have been to Walt Disney. Lots. Did you have a good or a bad time? Good. Also, this is what Walt Disney trying to aim to create. It's like when you get there, you want to stay there. You want to come back. You're like it's very strong. Everything is amazing. Everything is great. And this is really what he wants to try to achieve. Like there's no bad memory associated with Walt Disney. So it should be something magical. It should be something fantastic. And he really tried to work with that. And he has his own team of UX designers, which was called Imagineering. And they have their own rules that they have to respect. And their way to how to talk with people, how to interact with people, how to design new experience, how to place all the little place. So really, Walt Disney World is like a huge level design, well thought out, that Leonardo Da Vinci in the beginning would have taken a lot from. But this is what he was always standing by. So like, first you want to create memorable moments. And to do so, you have to create a really strong story around each of these moments so they can be communicated across and that the user can really feel it. So really, really, he thought about all the moments and make sure that how can we twist it so he creates a better experience. Is it too noisy here? Are we hearing the other, let's say, roller coaster from the other side? Is the line too long? How can we make sure that people get their ice cream? That nobody has no ice cream at some point. So all of this is something that he was really important for Walt Disney. Plusing, so it means okay, you did one. That was your first version of that memorable moments, but how can we make it even more better and always improving, making sure that everything is tight and flawless. Give choice to the players, like they're not forced to go into one path, but they can actually go and explore by themselves, make sure they can be more autonomous and adopt it on their own rhythm and ways. Fix what doesn't work, obviously. If you see that something doesn't work and you want to improve it, always be listening to your users in order to do so. Walt Disney was using data at the time already to make things better. When he noticed that at some point, at some time of the year or time of the month, there was a lack of ice cream, he used that to make sure that the next time it arrives, this problem will not arrive again. And test, refine, and test again. So this is the really best design practice from the Imagineering team that we want to incorporate both as game designers in all our games. Now when we're designing games, we want always to improve all of the experience, but it's something that can be also integrated in designing of product and software developments. So this is it. This is pretty much about game design.